welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians, Mayapack Public Library's pop culture podcast. Today we'll be continuing our Time to Cry series with the movie Wind River. This was a pick from Ben, who unfortunately could not be here with us today. And so,
who's no longer with us.
Who is no longer
at
with
all.
us at all. Aww.
Not in, I mean in the podcast, not in, like in
That makes
life.
it sound like he died.
Yeah, no, I meant like podcast-wise.
We found him in the mountains.
Yeah.
No, he is not dead. He's unfortunately no longer with us on the podcast. Which, what a time to cry. Yeah. So with that,
How do we want to introduce ourselves? Because I don't want to, if there's a way we're doing
we will all introduce ourselves. Sorry, I'm not used to doing the openings. I'm Amanda.
Katie.
Lewis left his law though. Really, it should have gone Simona though.
It's okay.
Amanda
Simona.
looked at me, so
She did look at you. I don't blame you, Katie. Don't worry.
Okay. Simona, hello.
My uncle.
You're not driving right now.
I'm an amateur.
Amanda's driving.
I'm an amateur.
It's all right. So Wind River. You want to introduce the movie a little bit, starring Jeremy Renner and one of the Olsens. And it's also
Wind River is a film that came out in 2017 that takes place
written and
on
directed by Yellowstone guy Taylor Sheridan. He also wrote Sicario, which we'll be watching soon, and he also wrote Hell or High Water, which is an excellent movie.
Wow, you seem to have it in hand there, Lou.
And he didn't want to introduce us. He's stealing your
Why
thunder.
don't you tell me what the movie's about, Lou?
Yeah.
Well, so the movie starts off with a young woman whose name is Natalie. You see her running through a very, very snowy, cold mountain.
Which is a beautiful shot.
It is a beautiful shot.
Haunting shot.
Yeah, hauntingly beautiful, some might say. She dies. Jeremy Renner is a wildlife kind of hunter.
He works in the
He's a
wildlife
hunter,
service.
not a human hunter.
No. Although some might say he is now, by the end of the movie, a human hunter. And he finds her body. FBI comes. You find out Jeremy Renner had something very similar happen to his daughter, where she was found in the wilderness dead several years earlier. And, so what's interesting is that...
Before we get too deeper in this, I want to put a disclaimer.
Okay.
Before we go deeper into this movie. This
Let's
movie
disclaim
does
it.
deal with themes of SA and R. I'm not going to say the terms out loud because...
What's R?
You
Sorry. I did not know.
Are we going to censor the term? I think we should censor the term. Everyone does it.
Do we
online.
censor terms?
No? Okay. So, no.
Yeah.
So this deals with SA. It deals with rape. It does deal also with a lot of cultural bias as well. So I just want to
I
put
don't
that
know
out there
about
first.
bias. I think it deals with cultural...
prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah, prejudice. Sorry, that was the word I was looking for. So.
Yeah, agreed. That's that's definitely good to bring up. I think
for those who are coming into this, these are the main focal points.
The movie intentionally brings that up.
Yeah.
The cultural aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, one of the things that always I really like this movie quite a bit. I think it's very well done. One of the things that it doesn't really hit for me is, there's that message at the end that talks about how there's no statistics for Native American women going missing.
Mm-hmm.
But hear me out. I almost think that message falls a little flat with this movie because the girl, other than the one scene, is missing throughout the entire movie. It's not really about her. I think it's about how the community is grieving, and it's almost about vengeance and stuff like that
as well. Nature is the main focal point,
Yeah.
and how nature is kind of like this harsh thing. It coincides with the suffering of the pain and suffering that people feel, but nature is a cruel and sometimes harsh thing.
So did you kind of feel that there should have been more of the character Natalie in the film?
No, I like what I like I like the movie. I like what they did with it. I think it's more about grief, though. I just think that
Grief and closure.
yeah.
And not getting closure as opposed to having the
Yeah.
closure.
Yeah, and I just think that message at the end, while it's poignant and it's important to know that, it's kind of like the movie does that itself. Like it's almost like the movie leaves her out too, and it's like, oh, she doesn't really get.
But could that have been intentional? I know what you're saying, because I definitely understand what. Could that have also been intentional? I mean, I agree. See, I know what you're saying, because if that was the intention, maybe it should have been a bit more obvious. That's how I kind of saw it, and this is where I also agree that maybe another element of this wasn't done as well as it could have been done. Because you see, when the FBI agent comes in, when Jane Banner comes in, it's pretty obvious that she has no cultural context for the community that she's entering.
She's not even from that area.
Yeah.
She's all the way from Florida.
And there's a line where Ben Shoyo basically says, "Look who they sent us."
Yeah.
So I think these not throwaway lines, but these minor lines are supposed to be indicative of the much larger issue at the end of the film.
I think all
But
that
I
was very
understand that
intentional.
it's sort of like one could almost miss what the intent of it is, because you could almost take it for, well, this is a backwater kind of place, and okay, they sent whoever they got. So you could almost
it's
miss
not a
what the
backwater place.
Well,
It's a
not-
reservation, and
Well-
so a lot of it, when crimes happen on reservations, it kind of feels like they give them the bare minimum,
Well, yeah, that's what I meant to say.
and they give them
yeah.
the worst thing.
Feel like
possible.
the bare
Yeah.
minimum. They
Yeah.
do give them.
Yeah,
the
because
bare
exactly.
because he says, "Look at
Because-
what they sent us." But I'm
Yeah.
saying, if you're not familiar with what the nature of the reservations and crime and how it's handled, you could almost miss what the intent of that line is
Right.
actually saying.
I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, Lou, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with you. I think it was very poignant for me at the end of the film having that statistics.
Yeah, one of the more poignant moments when I think there's a shift in Jane is when she goes to the home and she's talking to Natalie's father. And right off the bat, she's saying, well, why didn't you know where she was? Why don't you know who her boy? And he rightfully says she's an adult because she's 18 years old. And she goes, barely. And I could see how that hits him. And then he says something which Ben does not translate for her. But she goes, well, where's your wife? And I like how Ben says something like, I don't know if he says like, I wouldn't, but then
he says Jane don't.
yeah, and
Yeah.
but he doesn't say anything more, and she just proceeds, and she sees the wife, and the wife is committing an act of self-harm. I don't know if that's cultural.
She walks right into the room.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah, she doesn't really. Does she even knock?
No, she knocks first, and then she just goes right in because it's like, I understand as an FBI agent, you have to question, and it is a really tough part of the job probably to have to tell someone that their child is dead.
Yeah.
No parent. It was funny. I was watching a video essay. It's like they're like in Lord of the Rings, one of the best lines.
I saw the same video.
I like to go through different video essays to see if there are details I missed, and one of them was like, Theoden's thing was like, no parent should have to ever bury their child. And that is true. It's no parent should have to do it, but we grieve differently. As you can see, there's a duality here too, where someone is more physical.
To your, not to cut you off, Amanda, but to your comment about self-harming during a grieving process, I don't know if it's like a culturally a thing, but the only other movie where I saw that depicted was in Dances with Wolves. Yeah. When the love Stands with Fist, the character is self-harming herself because her husband has died and she's mourning the loss of her husband. Like I said, I don't know, like agreeing with you. I don't know if that's culturally.
I don't know. I've only
grief in
taken
different ways.
Yeah.
And she was obviously taking it very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that
I've
was
only
the
taken
moment.
One Native American Studies course, so I can't claim to be an expert.
I mean,
on any of
I've
it.
taken a few Native American history courses, but that I'm by no means an expert on.
So none of us are experts.
But that was the moment where I think there was a shift.
Yeah.
When she realizes that she has gone too far, and she is very much the outsider who needs to learn more and appreciate the culture she's entering, the community that she's entering.
And she's in over her head, I think she realizes.
Yes.
I think she realizes that that I think that's also the point where she wants to actually really help them.
Yeah.
And she realizes that she's in over her head,
Yeah.
and there's nothing that she can really do to help them because this is going to be an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
It's Natalie this time, but next time it's just going to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Can we talk about when she got shot? That was one of the. That was like.
So that's
if
the
not
end, though.
one
That's
of
the end, though.
I'm
Let's wait to
sorry.
get there.
That's all I think about
Yeah.
is that scene. Of, boom.
Yeah. Because I think
Girl
we should.
went
I think we should go
flying.
next to the first shootout at
yeah.
where Natalie's brother is.
That was devastating.
Yeah.
So listen, I have an issue with it.
Okay, fair enough.
Drug guy, high guy that opens the door.
Yes.
They're not there to arrest you. They're not there to do anything. And he escalates the situation.
He's on drugs.
I know. Stop doing drugs, man. Like,
God, did you see what they're living in?
like,
Fair though.
like that just escalated like so crazily. Like that did not need to happen.
Yeah.
That's-
They
Hell of a
literally
drug.
just wanted to go talk to Natalie's brother, and then he sprays the pepper spray at them.
That was like bear mace. Too.
Yeah,
it was a big old
It was
thing.
bad.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that scene. That scene is just so intense. And then when he like shoots at her and she just like unloads the clip on him, I'm like that's like that felt real to me. Like watching that felt real because like it's not like one shot to the head kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you know, it was like I'm unloading my clip because I'm like this is my life right here.
Yeah.
Like if I don't do this, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah, I do love. Then you have the other side of it that's not as realistic when the guys are running out the back and Jeremy Renner just hits him with a
I love
shovel.
that he's at first like way in the shovel. Like, how's this? I thought he was gonna like chop him up, but I was like, oh no.
You have two sides of it. You have like the ultra realistic side and then the badass
Yeah.
like cowboy side of it.
I think that was done on purpose, just to diffuse the tension of the scene.
But that scene where they, sit up where everything's calm at some point. It's not calm, but it's calmer.
Yeah.
Sitting the two guys down, and it sucks because Jeremy Renner, it shows his character Corey,
Yeah.
just how involved in the community. He's what would consider like kind of an outsider, but
Yeah.
he's ingrained so hard into the community that he is one with the community.
Yeah.
He's the outsider that can look in.
Yeah, I mean,
And
his
it's
wife
like he knows
and-
everybody. He knows these kids. He's known them
Yeah.
from when they were young. He knows their
Well,
families.
Natalie was his daughter's best friend.
Exactly, and that's her brother standing right there. And it devastates me that despite, the high that he's feeling, drugs are, they are downers.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of positivity and a lot of like stimulation to try to keep your mind, in this positive state. But if you get news that your sister is dead, you feel it 10 times more because that is the downer side of it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
you
it's
see
so
it.
upsetting, and I love the approach that Jeremy Renner his character has with confronting a lot of these problems is that I love the talk they have when he's in the back of the police car and he's just like I just really like want to like destroy the world kind of deal. I'm so filled with rage and I just kind of want to, how do you deal with that? And he's like, I know what it feels like, and he gives everyone kind of the same advice with their grief as well, as to keep it there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, make it yours and just kind of,
Well, yeah, I mean that's
that down.
that's a pretty poignant part too when
Yeah.
he's talking to Natalie's father, and he says
the grief.
keep the grief because
Keep
that's the
him.
only way you keep her really, which is just heartbreaking
Yeah.
because the only way to hold on to your
It's a
your
very
dead
different
child
message.
is by grieving. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so used to, I feel like, in some of the movies that we've already seen via the podcast and how people have dealt with grief, they're always like, it's okay to grieve and it's okay to cry and do all this stuff. It's like, let it go.
Yeah.
This one is like more memory, and that kind
Yeah.
of goes back to older tradition.
Yep.
Where the only way, it's kind of like legends. Legends only die if people stop talking about them and remembering them. I think if you've seen Troy, at least, that was kind of a focal point of the movie, was that if you stop talking about it,
People are gonna forget.
people are going to forget, and the only way to remember is to keep the pain
Yeah.
that you felt.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a very powerful message.
I actually thought, I thought Jeremy Renner, one of the criticisms I read about this movie was that it almost is like, it promotes like toxic masculinity.
I didn't think he was toxic at all.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of the opposite. There's the scene where he cries. I mean, he cries.
End,
He's very open about what happened. And I mean, he's, I think, he's been dealing with his thing. He's been dealing with his issue for several years now. So, he's almost come to grips with it.
If he was toxic, he'd be like manipulating his. I believe they're exes now. They don't live together. They never really kind of established what happened with that whole thing. I assume because of the death, I think
it's just too much.
They just seeing each other just hurts each other more.
Yeah.
Or it's very different. I don't know. But he's there for his kid.
Yeah.
That's still there. And his kid absolutely adores him. And I think that his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, whatever they are, their ex, they still respect each other. Mm-hmm. And he still keeps her up to date on stuff. He's not pushing her to do anything. Mm-mm. He even asks her before taking the kid to go see the parents. He's like, would it be cool? Like, maybe go take him to see the parents, stuff like that. And she's like, I don't know if I feel it. Yeah. He is nothing if not respectful to everybody.
Yeah.
He knows everybody. Where is the toxic man? I think Jeremy Renner, I think his character is a man amongst men.
I think it's because of the use of guns. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it is. Because, I watched this film, nothing about his character or any of the other characters, with the exception of the ones that are obviously the issues in the film.
Yeah.
So if you look at Corey, you look at Ben, you look at Martin, who's the father of Natalie. Mm-hmm. What is toxic about these men?
Yeah.
Well, so I think where you could look at the toxic masculinity is with Pete.
Yeah.
And his line that he says to Corey as if that's justification for his actions.
Well, he's a scumbag. Right. I expect nothing less of him.
Right, exactly. Well, exactly.
He looked like a scumbag. He talked like a scumbag.
Yeah, exactly. And that just when he says that there are no women here, it's just snow and silence and
silence is all they're lucky to have that silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that I think is where the toxic masculinity comes in. Just from
I would say for those men, the ones
Yeah.
at the rig were definitely because they are outside. They are strict outsiders. They have not tried to be a part of the community.
No.
They have not tried to do anything. They're on an oil rig, which is probably owned by a huge, corporation that doesn't care and probably went through hoops and hurdles just to have a rig there.
And can we talk about it was not even subtle. The moment they came in, I was like, okay, these are. There was nothing subtle about their characterization one bit.
No.
But
you saw all that coming?
Yes. Oh, please. I saw it a mile. First
of all, as soon as they said a rig, I went...
The bruising, because even the way...
I suspected something was up.
No, because even the way he
But I didn't expect them to start shooting out.
No. I definitely expected it because the way they... First of all, they were very jittery. Mm-hmm. They were not really... they had this air of politeness. But had she been there by herself... They would have killed her immediately, no questions asked, hidden the body. And then, what I like when they start, and we can start talking about the ending now. I know you didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
When they, well, I know it's really early, but, so, when she's with the other officers and the officers see, even I saw them, they were encircling them. So, the officer gets jumpy, but he recognized what they were doing. They were flanking them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like what he says, how you didn't see that, and she doesn't say anything. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she just didn't want to, admit it. But I was like, oh my, I saw too, they're flanking them.
Once that happens, then obviously
Yeah, but honestly, from the very beginning, I had a feeling they're not right. There's something off about these people. And the reveal, I wanted to really talk about the reveal about Matt. Because from the very beginning,
that's the big climax of the movie.
You have this notion that Matt is this basically white guy who was fetishizing this Native American woman, and there was no love. That's basically the general opinion. No one knows anything about him, so they're already assuming, okay, this is what he's
so
like.
Horrible
even
to just
Natalie's
assume.
brother.
Yeah, but
even Natalie's brother is like,
Yeah.
I didn't like that guy. I wanted to fight him right when I met him and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So you
And
do.
then-
I agree.
yeah.
That this, like,
But he
thought
was
of-
like protective of
Oh,
her
I
when
loved-
these guys got into
Well,
the
I
place.
think that's.
Yeah.
I think that's to
Yeah,
someone's
like
point here.
I loved that moment when, and I loved it because I didn't realize that was Matt. I love how that scene was done.
Yeah, they did a great
And he
job
opens
with
the
that.
door, and like his genuine joy in seeing her was heartbreaking because like I really like, oh my god, this man loved this woman.
Yeah.
And like, and honestly, the moment when they're like in bed and they're talking, and then the guys come in, I was like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
is going to be bad. So
Yeah.
it's a double betrayal because I mean, one would assume he may have known the men he was with, like, who knows
What they were doing.
Yeah.
And, like they were drinking that night.
But it's so heartbreaking how his final act before he died was saving her or trying to, like when he tells
Yeah.
her run, it's heartbreaking
Yeah.
when she looks back and she honestly could not have done anything
No.
at
No.
that point.
Yeah.
But that was very heartbreaking
It was,
because it's
yeah.
like, and I'm assuming maybe Corey, and no one really will know that. Man, I don't know if Corey finds out.
Well, he says it at the end to Pete.
Yeah.
He says, I'm guessing the boyfriend got in the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
shame because like
I think that
no
was
one
the,
will really know that.
The hint of the when he met the mountain lions
Yeah.
is that there
And
were
yeah, and
bones
eventually-
that I assume that meant that,
That was
they
Matt's
had that was
body.
their way
So
of
eventually
hiding
they'll
the
find out that
body.
that was Matt.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
He's a tracker, so it's like
Yeah.
he uses those tracker instincts to infer all
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like ultimately, you know, her death was caused by
Yeah.
the extreme elements that she was in,
Yeah.
but the cause and the motive was not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was way more sinister. I love that.
And
Yeah.
that's a reality too, because I was telling Katie prior to recording, like I went on this deep dive about missing and murdered Indigenous women and Two-Spirit people, and a lot of the times, like if bodies are recovered, like the coroner, like one family was saying, well, her disappearance was written off. Oh, well, she was drunk. She was probably on a bender,
Yeah.
or she used to drink. How that stereotyping, which I mean, some are realities of being in that situation, the history, the centuries of oppression. Like certain
Yeah.
things are there's,
Yes.
but the fact that it's easily dismissed, she'll come back. Like that was literally what they told one family. I'm sure she's drunk. She'll come back.
Yeah.
And then I think they found her body.
It's the flat out dismissal of it
Yeah,
all.
and basically how there is no closure. You may not know. Like one woman was saying, like she was exposed for so long, we don't know how she died. So that too, like when the coroner was saying, I know this is a homicide, but I can't write that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what that was reminding me of, like the frustration of the families. And even if you look at Corey and Martin, they at least have the closure of sort of knowing, okay, where their daughters are. Like they were able to bury bodies. A lot of people cannot do that.
Yeah.
They don't have that closure. And that's what's heartbreaking because that's what almost keeps the hope alive. Well, maybe she is okay. You know, maybe nothing did happen, but it's like I cannot imagine as a mother, as a father, what that must be like not knowing and hoping, even if you kind of know, like it's not likely. So Corey and, like I said, Martin have that closure. It doesn't make it any less heartbreaking, but they have it. And knowing that there are many families that do not have that makes it even more heartbreaking, that
Yeah.
they don't have that closure.
Well, there was
Yeah.
also the scene with the coroner.
Yeah.
That was kind of like, this is sketchy.
Yeah.
I see. I don't think it was sketchy. I think he was being, like you just said. I
Yeah,
think he was
exactly.
being honest. I think he said, "I can't say the cause of death for her was homicide."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like how and just it's more of like
It
a
technically
a
is
humorous
not,
thing.
yeah.
I like how every time like Jeremy Renner just knows immediately, like everything before everyone else. He's like, "I'm guessing that her lungs exploded," and then 2 scenes later, the coroner's like more
Her lungs
more
exploded.
medical, but he's like, yeah, basically her lungs exploded.
Yeah.
And then like even at the end, Jeremy Renner's like, you know, with the guy, he's like, so I'm guessing the boyfriend intervened. Like, how would you know that?
I feel
Yeah.
like because of the instincts that he's been able to
No,
gather,
I just think it's funny.
He's just
like,
really
it's
good
like,
at
let's
like
throw these
piecing
lines
it all
in there.
together.
Well, maybe
he's a regular Sherlock
Yeah.
Holmes.
Maybe one could assume, like, I don't know how long he looked, but when they do find the boyfriend's body, first of all, one leg is gone because it's being eaten by which was kind of
A family.
But I think when you see the marks, I guess maybe one could make the intuitive leap. Let's just playing the devil's advocate. where if he sees the body, he was like, okay, based on maybe, and I'm assuming maybe he found out because he knows the coroner. So I'm assuming the same coroner maybe looked at the body of Matt or whatever. They would have probably seen defensive
Whatever
wounds.
was
We don't
left of it.
see that. So I don't know.
like just arguing maybe that they were like defensive wounds.
I think it's
So,
supposed to be.
I don't know.
I just thought it was funny. I'm not like going against. Like I'm not saying like it was implausible.
He knows.
I just thought it was funny. Like yeah.
Jeremy Renner knows everything.
And I think it's also
He
because
out in the woods.
Yeah, exactly,
He knows
yeah.
everything. He using his little binoculars,
Yeah.
being like, "I see everything going on. I know your crimes.
Yeah.
I know your sins."
and I think it's also supposed to be like I kind of saw, and maybe everyone else saw this too, Corey as sort of like even the audience's liaison
Yeah.
between that community and the one who is viewing it,
Yeah.
because he's both an outsider and an insider.
Yeah.
So like I kind of saw him as that he's the audience's link between these two communities, these two worlds. But I thought it was brilliant. I was like, of course she wants you involved. You know, do your thing. And but I also, what's important too is because she's in a different element. So he's essentially saying, I know what you're used to, but you have to go beyond it. Like pay attention to the clues that are given to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's also important too, because he's saying, you know, look at the tracks, like which is what anyone should be doing if you're detecting or whatever that, you know, you're investigating.
You're doing it the right
You're-
term.
Yeah, you're supposed to also look at what isn't obvious or what may not be obvious. So he's kind of like nudging her because he can't outright, because he's sort of like a consultant, not consultant. So he's pretty much saying like,
he's not supposed to be a consultant at all.
yeah, but and
Yeah.
I think it's like you might want to take a look at the tracks. You know, you might want to, you know, because she's not used to this environment.
Right, exactly.
She's
So-
Which is
in
why she asked for
Florida.
his help, though.
Yeah.
I think that has to be praised a little bit too. She's
Yeah.
like, I'm not familiar with this. I don't know what I'm. She even
She's
says,
coming from a whole
I don't know
different
what I'm
climate
doing.
zone.
Yeah.
I love how when she walks out with the high heels and they're like, "So you want to go with that outfit?"
He's like,
Yeah.
I literally just came from Vegas. What do you want from
Yeah,
me?
but and she's honest about it. She's like this is what I have. Like I, you know,
Yeah.
As
like,
someone who has experienced like different climate changes, like I was born in Florida, moved to Colorado, and it was like a okay. Then moved back to North Carolina just to move to New York. It is a crazy thing. You never get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the worst thing ever. It's like you're like my mom. I watched my mom go from like never seeing snow to seeing snow for the first time and being like, this is great. And then the next day she's like, now I have to clean it. She's like, I hate snow.
and she also doesn't know. Like you know, she gets a call. She's at some training or something in
Yeah.
Vegas. She gets a call that she's got to go out to Wyoming. The first thing she's thinking is not, I need to get a jacket, I need to get snow pants, I need to
Yeah.
get boots.
Yeah.
She's like, the first thing she's thinking is, there's been a murder, I need to get out there.
Yeah.
You know, or a potential murder.
And I love the little moment when Ben pulls her tight and says, "I see you found the
Yeah.
town," and
Yeah.
she's, I
Barely,
just love
yeah.
that
something like
moment.
that, yeah.
Another thing I like too is when you eventually learn who the killer is. And Corey, I just love that line where he says she walked or ran 6 miles. He goes, she's a warrior.
Yeah.
And I saw it as almost basically him she can't reclaim because she's dead, but essentially basically saying, you know, look at what she was able to accomplish and you will never be able to do that. He goes, okay, now go. And I
Yeah.
love how he's just watching and he just collapses. And when the father asks him, how did he go out? He goes, with a whimper.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of the most beautiful lines because he kept his promise to the dad that he was going to basically find out who did it and he was going to make sure this guy will
Such a good
receive
revenge.
punishment
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what he's done.
Yeah, and I like actually right before that
Mm-hmm.
when Martin asks him, he says, I hear one of them still out there, and Jeremy Renner's just like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
Nah, guy was like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
his lungs exploded.
yeah.
And I also after we haven't really talked about that scene yet, but when Elizabeth Olsen says to him like go get him, Jeremy Renner even says, if I go get him, I'm not bringing him back, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Know what happens in the mountains? Stay in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that whole scene, I mean, so, you know, obviously they all go to the oil rig. Elizabeth Olsen knocks on the door. You think that the guy opening the door is going to greet Elizabeth Olsen. He ends up greeting Natalie. It's
Yeah.
a flashback, and then all that stuff happens. I got to tell you, I did tear up a little bit every time he like like got up, like the way he fought for her.
Yeah.
I mean, was just like that scene is just, obviously it's
gut-wrenching.
intense. But they cross a line and he just keeps getting up and keeps fighting these guys, and you just obviously know that he's gonna die.
But it's interesting to, and not to sound corny, but whatever, I'll say it anyway. I don't care. But I think it also goes to show that when you truly love someone, you're going to do whatever it takes to help that person, and that's essentially. And unfortunately, it was the elements that got her, but he gave her that opportunity to run away. Because God knows what would have happened had she not been able to get away.
Yeah.
If she stayed, she'd probably be dead.
Yeah.
They would actually have been in homicide.
Yeah. So that was so heartbreaking because, like, his pure joy at seeing her. Yeah. And, I was almost thinking, too, if only the friend had stayed, had she not driven away with the car, she could have gotten into the car. Yeah. But, yeah, it is really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So.
I thought... so we're getting to, we've gotten to the end of the film. I thought, just before the credits start kind of going, there's a scene where he walks up to the, he tucks in the mom after she's clearly been going through it. Covers her. I thought she was going to be dead first. I thought, he's starting to worry what's going on in the house. And I'm like, I'm starting to worry what's going on in the house. I'm like, I forgot whose house this was. I'm like, whose house is this again? Yeah. And then he sees the mom, and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. And he's like, oh, she's alive. I'm just going to blanket. And I was like, oh, thank God. And
that's another, she's sitting there, lying there,
holding
all her daughter's stuff.
She's got pictures, everything, all her stuff, all the letters and pictures. And I think it's said throughout the entire movie there's a poem being read, which is, I think, Natalie's poem, right?
It's Emily's
poem. Yeah. And so, but I love the scene when he goes down to the father he's painted his face and he's like, what's that? And he's just like, it's my death mask. He's like, whatever that is. He's like, I don't know. And it is a little it is not a little, it is very heartbreaking to see that even on reservations, because the populations dwindle, especially in the, these colder areas, it's very hard to survive and stay sane in these areas. That he was like, I don't know what it looks like. It just felt appropriate. He's like, his culture is dying. Yeah. It's going away, and he has no one to teach him. The Native American culture is all about passing down to the next generation, practices and their culture. And there's no elders there anymore. Yeah. To pass down,
it's
the culture of grieving and what a death mask is and what it symbolizes and what it's supposed to be.
It's not even just the elders. It's the younger generation who's left the reservations to find work.
They have to.
Yeah, that the elders don't have anything to pass down to them.
They have to leave their homes behind. And it's a heartbreaking thing that even though, you have a young person who has died, you still have her parents who... Her dad looks really young, I'm not going to lie. Doesn't even know how his culture would grieve in a situation like this. So this movie has an all-encompassing... I like movies like this that make you think about different forms of death, how people grieve. Yeah. What lies in the hearts of man. Nature being a cruel but equal...
An equalizer?
The great equalizer. Yeah. It's like she died trying to run 6 miles, but, the cold got her. Yeah. Unfortunately. And same thing happened with Pete, where, it's not a human that should kill him. It has to be the same way that nature did. He gave him an equal opportunity, which was more than he deserved.
Played its own character.
Yeah. Nature is
almost played its own. I think nature is
was probably the biggest factor here. Was was how we spent so much time in it.
Yeah.
Can we also briefly talk about when the grandmother is outfitting Jane?
I love that scene. Bring it
And
back.
she goes, and this is not a gift, it's my grandchild's.
Yeah.
And when Corey sees her in the outfit, like how he
Yeah,
freezes.
he kind of stops for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, like that's heartbreaking too, because when he's telling his story, and it's brilliantly acted, that scene, where he says, like she was found 6 miles away from the home, and we don't know how she got there, and how she died. So and how he starts, like his voice hitches, and then Jane says, do you have a bathroom? And you could see that she's trying to collect herself too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for those who said it's toxic masculinity, you
Yeah.
obviously didn't
None
watch
of
the
it.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything,
Yeah.
we got a big where another aspect of where nature plays like a huge part is, I think it was Corey's ex that calls men wolves. Mm-hmm. And we see that very present in the rig.
Yeah.
They have a wolf pack mentality where they are grouping, they're flanking,
Yep.
they're thinking, and when one steps out of line, he's out.
Yeah.
He's gone, and they do it in the most brutal manner, and they don't care. Mm-hmm. It's pack mentality going on there, and you have Jeremy Renner, who is kind of like a mountain lion, in
Yep.
which
The lone
the
hunter.
one going through
Yeah.
Can
and
we also
has no
talk-
problem.
Can we also talk about how he knows, going back to how he knows everything, and he's trying to contact Ben? I like how he basically just says Ben, and like, what is it, psychic? And Ben goes, get away from the door. I like how he just says,
To be fair, there were a lot of signs that there was something fishy going
I
on
know,
in the
but
places that she tried to open the door, and it's like, why are you guys
but I just
acting
love
so weird
how
with the
all
door?
he says is Ben, and then Ben goes, Jane!
She went flying.
She did.
There's a meme where it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you hear meow, and that's all that I thought during that scene is she went flying. I was like meow. How fast she went back! I'm like, oh, she's dead.
When he puts her on the couch in the trailer, and then he's like, "Oh, it's not that bad." I'm like, "What? That's not
Like,
that
just put this
bad."
on your neck. You're fine.
She just got shot point blank with a shotgun.
Well, as he said, it's like when
The
you're in this
bulletproof
area, you kind of have to do everything yourself because the next hospital is probably like
Miles
20
away.
miles away.
And she's like, do you have, like, you probably don't have a helicopter. He goes, nope. Just like,
no helicopter
But I
for
just
you?
love how no words need to be spoken. They said Ben, and Ben knew it.
You think we got money for a helicopter here?
Can we also just talk about the actors who played Martin and Ben because
Yeah.
they have been very like prolific in
Yeah.
film, like
Especially Ben.
oh
I'm
yeah,
not Ben. Which one is he?
Martin.
The sheriff.
yeah, that's Ben.
That's
Graham
Ben.
Greene.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Graham
Ben.
Greene. He plays my favorite character in one of my favorite movies, Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
I absolutely love his character in that movie.
I feel like you see him in like any movie where there is like Native American Central.
yeah,
Yeah.
As
Martin
him,
was
and he
in
was
Parks and
such
Rec.
a great character in this film.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was
He
so
was.
funny and sassy in the sense.
Oh,
I
yeah,
loved
he's
him.
great.
He's like,
I was like, I
was
arrested
like,
you
I
last
was
week.
hurt.
He goes,
I loved his relationship with Jane.
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought that they were like, I liked them
this is a
together.
good buddy
Yeah.
cop situation going
I was
on.
like, Wind River 2.
No.
I think they are making a sequel.
Are they really?
I think so.
but why
Oh,
after all
wow.
this
Why?
time?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I feel like some movies, like honestly,
It-
just
it's like it's like a scam sequel.
oh, thank
Oh.
God.
Oh.
So I don't have to watch it. Got it. Or is it by the same person?
No, it's by,
said scam?
it's by some different directors who did like Children of the Corn 666.
Oh,
So
no!
it's truly just like it's direct to video nonsense.
Oh
No.
no.
Well,
There's a
that's
series for you. We're
disappointing.
gonna watch all the Children of the Corn.
Oh my god.
No.
God.
No, we have your woman. Okay, off topic. I love Children of the Corn.
Of course you do.
It's so funny.
But I think, the whole, like Katie said, it's kind of about, it really is just, it's about grief and how people deal with grief. I mean, yeah, like, there's a lot of also vengeance and stuff like that. Like,
This
Yeah.
is a great revenge.
But
Cool.
vengeance is a part of grief.
yeah. But I like when, going back to the last scene when
Yeah.
Corey and Martin are sitting there, and Martin says to Corey, do you mind sitting with me for a while? And Corey says, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I was like, that's
Have your
And
time.
so nice.
And that's
Yeah.
important too, because like going back to the criticism of toxic masculinity, men in general are given by society very few opportunities in which it is acceptable for them to be emotional, vulnerable,
cry.
and to grieve.
Yeah.
So stop with shit that this was toxic masculinity, because there are because I'm tired of that. Because there are too many moments in this film which shows men. I'm sorry, because
No, don't be sorry.
it's nonsense, because you obviously weren't watching the same film. Because like that moment in itself, it shows that you can be vulnerable, that it is acceptable to grieve, and to have that vulnerability. And the fact that he says, like, I am there to support you, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
and
so,
I couldn't agree more. I think you said it
all the
perfectly.
time.
Yeah.
And I think it was not only Martin being vulnerable, but I think it was Corey being vulnerable too. Like they were both.
Because they both have lost their daughters in the same way, so they have a parallel grief.
Yeah, and
They're
even
grieving the
and
same.
even the scene when Jane comes in the house and Martin sees Corey and Ben close the door, and you hear Martin go, like he releases that anguish, that cry, and Ben basically closes the door and he just stares at Jane, and it's two men being allowed, like they embrace one another, and he's full on just letting go. You know, so no.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was, and it was only one review, but I was like, really? Like I think you missed things then.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
I don't know.
definite-
I would love a man like Jeremy Renner in this movie, like Corey Lambert. I'm in love with Corey.
I gotta tell you, I want to be
That's
a
a-
man like Jeremy Renner.
Don't we?
Did anybody
wish
else
we
really
could-
want cowboy hats after that?
No.
I always want a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
If anybody
My
wants
dad
to
always loved
gift
the
me
cowboy
a cowboy hat,
I was also like, I want to get a rifle.
I
now.
liked the snowmobiles, like how
you
they're
want a big
riding.
old shotgun.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's my favorite kind of gun to play in like video game shooters. I love shotguns. They're just big
Yeah.
and they're just slow, and I'm like, bam.
Yeah. The part where you like, the part at the end
I don't
too,
even like guns.
when he's about to confront the oil riggers and he just takes it out and like he like goes like, and I'm like, oh cool.
He means
Resident
business.
He just makes everything look cool.
He means business.
No.
Practice that. The only thing I didn't think Jeremy Renner's outfit was cool was the stupid little like pack on his back. I'm like, take that off.
Oh, see, I even thought that was cool. He's got all this stuff in there. It's right there. You just go-
It's like
But
fanny
it's
packs?
convenient.
Nah, chest pad.
And you got a
It's
really
convenient.
cool revolver in there too.
Yeah, right.
It's all about convenience.
He made overalls look good.
Yeah, that was that's actually the only thing I didn't. I was like,
I've
I
been
don't
really
think I
on
could
an
rock
overall
overalls
kick
like that.
recently because as a kid I hated them.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, I've started wearing a couple of them, and I'm like, these are actually really comfy. I was like, what's
Rocking
going on?
overalls, huh?
It was the denim overalls I think I didn't like. Those ones are stiff and gross. Now they make them like swoveralls, where it's like sweatpants material, but it's an overall and it's comfy.
They're called
and stretchy.
swover.
Are they really?
They were a Shark Tank product that I've been eyeing for like a month now, and they're really trying to get me with their advertisements. And I'm like, it's gonna work.
Oh, by the way, this whole movie was like a Carhartt like
yeah,
ad. Like,
Carhartt is like on it. My dad, he does construction. Like he's a contractor. Carhartt.
yeah.
Always the jackets. They're budget
Yeah.
friendly. They're also like really like tough material.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So they're great for whatever hardships they're going through
Yeah.
and stuff like that. They don't tear easy.
yeah.
Ah, Carhartt. I just kept seeing that logo. I'm like, that's Carhartt.
So
Good product placement.
Good product placement. If you're gonna go to Wyoming, I've been to Wyoming. Have any of you guys been to
I have
Wyoming?
not been to
Not
one.
yet.
The ranches in Wyoming are really
Let's go.
nice.
Caffeinated Librarians on the road.
I want to go to
Good bison
Yellowstone.
burgers.
Yellowstone National Park is on my bucket
Let's
list.
do it. Let's go.
Yeah,
What are you guys doing this weekend?
I'm gonna be here
Yeah.
working.
Damn.
It's a little too cold maybe to go up there right now.
No, this is where we want to go. We can wear our Carhartt stuff.
We're all gonna buy Carhartt. We're all gonna go.
Maybe
Okay.
Carhartt could donate stuff for us.
Sponsor.
Yeah. And we could do a show in the mountain,
Oh my god.
outside, in the cold. with
Wow.
wolves
Why don't
all
we
around
invite the
us.
grizzlies
Ow.
too? The wolves.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
want to buy grizzly.
No, you don't.
I've been told to walk if a grizzly comes at you. Do not run because it'll chase you down, but just walk. That's why I've seen like a
Facing
bunch
it
of
though,
stuff.
right? Like you have to walk backwards, right?
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, I
They
think
say that with mountain lions too. If you see a mountain lion kind of like stalking you on a trail,
you gotta make
walk.
yourself bigger, and you can't. You can't.
You can scream. You gotta scream, and then
Yeah.
you gotta like.
Oh, believe me, they'll be
walk.
screaming.
Yeah.
Not like that. You gotta yell at it. You gotta
Yeah.
be like, ah!
No, but
Lose scream.
Have
Is that
you
bird?
have you seen
The birders are gonna come out.
have you seen that commercial where it's like a Twix commercial? So you see this guy on a log, he pulls the Twix, he goes, "Ooh, chewy," and the two bears are watching, goes, chewy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what that would remind me of. Like the bear just decides, I'm calling your bluff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. That
It's
sounds
funny.
like
He
a
goes,
good commercial.
chewy.
I like it.
Oh, that's just what it reminded me of.
So yeah,
this-
do we want to give ratings? Just out of the seriousness of the movie, maybe we'll just do stars.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Want me to start?
Yes.
5 out of 5. I really I've seen this movie a few times, and it did make me tear up a little bit. I'm not sure it made me fully bawl out and cry, but it did make me tear up. It's a very intense, emotional movie.
5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, it didn't really make me cry. It made me emotional, and it just pissed me off.
Word.
I'm gonna give it.
Give it like
3.5.
yeah. Or no, it's something annoying like 3.67.
Just for that, do it.
Now you guys are calling me out. Now you guys are making me overthink.
Now she's gonna
my-
surprise us and just
Yeah.
be like 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
No, nothing's 5 out of 5 for me. But I give it I did enjoy this movie. I think it is a fantastic story of revenge. In a sense, it's almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
I love the use of nature in the whole thing. I am usually not a fan of like FBI murder mystery movies, but this one was very well done. I would give it a decent like 4 out of 5. Maybe close to a 4. Yeah.
Close to
like
a
a
4.
3.8. That's where my heart is leading me, is a 3.8. But I genuinely did like this movie. It did not make me cry, but I do love movies that this was a depressing film,
Yeah.
but it did have a lot of eye-opening messaging that was great. It really made you think. Instead of shoving a message in your face, it did have a lot of very good, oh, I'm thinking about this now. It makes you think about the things that might be going on reservations that you didn't have. My grandmother, when I was younger, rest in peace, used to take me when we lived in Florida to a reservation every year.
Yeah.
And so I do have a love for
There's a
stuff like that. I am a very big advocate when it comes to like librarians on reservations and those needing to be more regulated more than ever now, because of the educational resources that reservations do not have.
Yeah.
Especially with libraries. Libraries are kind of like a big key source of any kind of like children's education, stuff like that. With some of the budgets that libraries could have, they could be better. It is something I do check up on occasionally to see, hey, how we doing? So I do give it a 3.8 only because there are some things I would have liked to have known more in the film, but with all the information I was given, it was a solid story.
Yeah.
That did make me sad and at the same time kind of hopeful.
But you cried more during Untamed Heart, right?
I didn't cry at all. I laughed at Untamed Heart. I'm sorry. I laughed. It was too much. This one was actually like, oh wow, this is like really like depressing and kind of like almost like angering.
Yeah.
So yeah. So solid 3.8 because I enjoyed it.
5 stars. I enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you, Ben, for this fantastic movie pick. It sucks that you're not here with us. But with that, we'll see you for our next film on the Time to Cry series, which we'll be talking about
Anna
Anna
Karenina.
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 Which is Annalise.
Karen. I could never say this name. Karenina. I don't know. It's
Anna
like
Karenina.
Ferrero Rocher. It's like Ferrero Rocher. I don't know. Can't do it. Why do they name things like this? With that, we'll see you next time.
Bye.